Hi learners, this is Mrs. C. Suganti, Assistant Professor, Department of Business Administration with Computer Applications, St. Joseph's College of Arts and Science for Women, Ozu. Today we are going to discuss about short-term sources of finance. What is meant by short-term sources of finance? Short-term finance refers to financing needs for a small period, normally less than a year, that we call as short-term finance. In business, it is also known as working capital financing. This type of financing is normally needed because of uneven flow of cash into the business, the seasonal pattern of business, etc. Next, we are going to discuss about what are all the major sources of short-term funds are. In that, the first one is in indigenous bankers. What is meant by indigenous bankers? The indigenous bankers means private money lenders and other country bankers used to be the only source of finance prior to the establishment of commercial banks. What are all the drawbacks of this indigenous bankers? They used to charge very high rate of interest and exploited the customers to the largest extent possible. Then second one is in trade credit. What is meant by trade credit? The trade credit refers to the credit extended by the suppliers of goods in the normal course of business. This present day commerce is built upon credit, the trade credit arrangement of a firm with its suppliers is an important source of short-term finance. The trade worthiness of a firm and the confidence of its suppliers are the main base of securing trade credit. Then third one is an installment credit. This is another method by which the assets are purchased and the possession of goods is taken immediately, but the payment is made in installment over a predetermined period of time. Generally, interest is charged on the unpaid price or it may be adjusted in the price. The next is in advances. Some business houses get advances from their customers and agents against orders, and this source is a short-term source of finance for them. It is a cheap source of finance, and in order to minimize their investment in working capital, some firms having long production cycle, especially the firms manufacturing industrial products, prefer to take advance from their customers. Then the next is in factoring. What's meant by factoring? The factoring is another method of raising short-term capital is through account receivable credit offered by commercial banks and factors. A commercial bank may provide financial finance by discounting the bills or invoices of its customers. Thus, a firm gets immediate payment for sales made on credit. Then the next is in accrued expenses. What is meant by accrued expenses? Accrued expenses are the expenses which have been incurred but not yet due and hence not yet paid also. These simply present a liability that a firm has to pay for the services already received by it. The most important items of accruals are wages and salaries, interest and tax. These are all the examples of accrued expenses. Then the next is in deferred incomes. What's meant by deferred incomes? Deferred incomes are incomes received in advance before supplying goods or services. They represent funds received by a firm for which it has to supply goods or services in future. These funds increase the liquidity of a firm and constitute an important source of short-term finance. And the next is in commercial paper. Commercial paper represents unsecured promissory issued. promissory note issued by firms to raise short-term funds. It is an important money market instrument in advanced countries like USA. In India, the Reserve Bank of India introduced commercial paper in the Indian money market and the recommendations of the working capital on money market. And the next is in commercial banks. Commercial banks are the most important source of short-term capital. The major portion of working capital loans are provided by commercial banks. They provide a wide variety of loans tailored to meet the specific requirements of a concern. Different forms of financial assistance that is provided by commercial banks means loan, cash credits, overdrafts, purchasing and discounting of bills. And the last short-term source of finance is public deposits. What is meant by public deposit? Acceptance of fixed deposits from the public by all type of manufacturing and non-bank financial companies in the private sector has been a unique feature of Indian financial system. The importance of such deposits in financing of Indian industries was recognized as early as in 1931 by the Indian Central Bank Banking Inquiry Committee. Thank you, learners.